Welcome, everyone. My name is Noelle Schroeder, and I am a part of a national movement called the Healthy Living Revolution. And there are several of us on the call tonight who are also a part of that movement. And we're here to inspire healthy living around the world. We love to educate people on healthy living. And so the topic of tonight's talk is nutrition for women. And what we've been doing is a series of interviews with experts in different areas of healthy living. Tonight we have Adrienne Irizarry, and Adrienne, I am going to read your bio because you have some incredible credentials and there's no way I could memorize that. So Adrienne Irizarry, PhD, owner of Moon Essence LLC, is a certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and holds a diploma in Chinese nutritional therapy. She uses these tools working with women to regulate cycles at every stage of life. Menarche, is that how you say that, Adrienne?
Yeah, or menarche. I've heard it pronounced both ways.
Okay, through post-menopause. Thank you. With steam, herbs, and Chinese dietetics, she works to bring a woman's body into better balance and to recover from childbirth. Adrienne was called to this profession because she had experienced menstrual difficulty her entire adult life. Her journey with unexplained infertility had her asking for better tools than Western medicine was offering. Steaming changed her quality of life, eliminating pain, irregularity, and bloating. She was so enlivened by this experience, she wanted to share this gift with other women. Adrienne's passion for Chinese medicine over the last decade, particularly in the area of food and nutrition, continues to grow and now includes cupping and acupressure in addition to her steam therapy practice. It is Adrienne's heart song to empower women to take care for their bodies. So welcome, Adrienne.
Thank you very much for having me.
So tell me, Adrienne, and first of all, I'm just struggling with the view here, so give me a moment. I don't know why that is.
On the recording, babe, it's going to bounce back and forth between whoever's talking. So feel free to say a short to get the screen to pop to you before you begin talking from here on out. But the recording will pick up each of you as the main speaker as you're speaking.
Okay. And you're not seeing, like I'm seeing the rest of my desktop here, but you're not seeing that.
Mm-mm.
Okay, good. All right. So I'll just ignore that then. So Adrienne, I would love to just kind of pick your brain because you have a wide array of expertise. But I know when you and I were chatting the other day, one of the things that you talked about is stress. And, you know, we are in a very stressful situation globally right now, and we don't want to dwell on that tonight. We want to actually give everyone a little bit of a diversion from the hot topic of the moment. But, you know, what does stress do to a person's sort of whole system, and how does that affect a woman's body in particular?
That's a great question. So the analogy that I use the most often with my clients is your body can't tell the difference between being chased by a saber-toothed tiger and 100 unanswered emails in your inbox. It generates that same fight or flight response. And because the world is moving faster than it's ever moved before, we find ourselves living more in that fight or flight state than being able to come in to rest and digest. So when that happens, the body goes, oh, we have to get away from the tiger. And it prioritizes the systems in the body that are going to get you away from the tiger. So, you know, air in your lungs, acuity of your mind, you know, the tools that you need in order to get away from the tiger. How that shows up in a woman's body is the reproductive system sadly falls last on the list of priorities because let's face it, you don't need your uterus unless you get away from the tiger. So because of that, when the body's prioritizing resources, it goes, oh, hey, I can steal some energy resources from over here and divert them to another place, which, you know, when you're actually being chased by a tiger, you'd be thankful for. But because we live in this state and don't come down into rest and digest nearly often enough, we we find that over time, the efficiency of our reproductive cycles slowly gets eroded. So it starts showing up as brown blood, as cramping, as, you know, irregularities in your cycle. So a normal, standard, healthy cycle arrives every 28 to 30 days. It only lasts for 4 days of fresh red blood only. No brown, no cramping, no PMS, no funny business. It comes in gently and it does its job, and then it leaves just as gently. And unfortunately, it is incredibly rare to actually find women who that is their reality and their experience. And a lot of it has to do with this phenomenon of the body prioritizes your resources elsewhere, and the first place it shows up is your reproductive system.
Okay. That's great. I mean, I just love that explanation, because it really simplifies it, right? Like that is what stress does to us from a women's health perspective. And, you know, for fertility, that's, you know, something we really need to pay attention to. But what are sort of the most common complaints you see women having, you know, in addition to infertility?
In addition to infertility, I have a lot of women who will show up with symptoms of blood deficiency. So periods that start, they'll run a couple of days, they'll start to either look like they're going to stop or stop completely, and then start again in 24 hours. I see women who come in that like start with pink spotting, or they start with brown spotting, and then the period starts, and then it changes at the end, a lot of times turning to brown at the end. So those are very common with blood deficiency, but it shows up in other ways too. Stagnation is very prevalent. That's where you do get a lot of the brown blood. You'll also see it in terms of slowing of circulation in your hands and in your feet, having your fingers and toes be cold first. A lot of times when you present with those types of symptoms, cramping is very common. And sometimes you'll also see like cramping with heavy flood bleeding, or one or the other, bad cramping or bad flood bleeding, and they're all connected.
Okay. And so it seems like a lot of women would have these experiences and just think that that's normal, because that's what they've always experienced, and because we tend to be told that those are normal symptoms. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't even realize, that those are problems.
We really don't, because either our periods start too early. So the average age for a healthy menarche or first menses to start is between 12 and 14, with the average age being 13. If you're starting earlier than that, it's a sign that you're actually starting with an imbalance before your period starts. And if you're starting 14 or later, you're starting with an imbalance in your body also. So sometimes, you know, people start with an imbalance right from the beginning, and then with this, you know, fight or flight tiger scenario throughout the course of their life, it becomes like a snowball rolling downhill. It starts to gain steam. And then by the time, you know, a lot of women that are coming into my practice now that are in their mid 30s are like, my doctor's talking about a hysterectomy because I have fibroids, or I have endometriosis, or they suspect I have endometriosis because I have X, Y, and Z. And, you know, they're telling me that surgery is my only option. And it isn't the only option. Thankfully, there are less invasive ways of being able to deal with it, and food and nutrition is a really big part of that.
So let's talk a little bit more about blood deficiency and what that means, especially from a nutritional perspective.
Sure. So when I say blood deficiency, it isn't as cut and dry as the Western diagnosis of anemia. A lot of times there is an anemic component to people that have blood deficiency, but it isn't a prerequisite. Blood deficiency is not having enough foundational blocks in the blood for the blood to do all the jobs that it's supposed to. So in a woman's body, not having enough building blocks can actually feed that stagnation, that circulation slowdown that I mentioned. So blood deficiency acts like the first domino that sets the course for a whole bunch of other things. So when there aren't enough nutritional building blocks in the blood can't flow efficiently. When the blood can't flow efficiently, you see problems with circulation, which then shows up as brown blood, cramping, things of that nature. And even after your red blood years end, you can still have phantom cramping because of blood deficiency and stagnation. You can, and people are like, oh, I wish I was still bleeding because that would give me like the relief that I need from these symptoms that I'm experiencing. But that end never really kind of comes. So it's like there's the buildup of the intensity and then there's no period let down that kind of gives relief to some of those symptoms. But when there's not enough building blocks, the blood can't flow efficiently. When the blood doesn't flow efficiently, it doesn't create enough heat to prevent things like dampness. Dampness can look like edema in the hands and feet. It can look like, for years, I just thought that everybody had to take their rings off before they went to bed. I had no idea that the reason why I couldn't get my wedding ring off my sausage fingers in the morning is because my circulation wasn't optimal enough to drain the dampness, the moisture in my body. And so I was getting swelling. I just always took my rings off at night because I knew there was no way they were coming off in the morning. So, things like that, they might be small, but they will show up. And with, it's kind of like an April morning where, until the sun has been out for long enough, the ground is super squishy. But by 2 or 3 in the afternoon, your ground isn't as squishy anymore and you can go out and play in the yard. It's the same kind of thing. So create enough heat, you don't have the moisture accumulation. That moisture accumulation can feed things like fibroids and clots, and other issues that women see.
Okay. So from a nutritional perspective, what can we do to correct these issues to create less dampness and more heat? Is that right?
Yeah. Well, so that's what I love about Eastern medicine is everything's described in an elemental way.
Right.
So either there's too much heat, like we start to see around menopause, and that can very much be countered with food because in our culture, we think that heat and menopause are synonymous, and they're not actually. It shows the progressive decline of kidney yin, which functions kind of like coolant in your car. If you have, you can put water in your radiator if you get a rock in your radiator, but you're only going to get so far down the road before your radiator overheats again. So it's the same kind of thing. If you're putting the right cooling foods in your body's going to run at a cooler temperature. And that's very important around menopause. But when we're talking about heating the body up, whether it's blood deficiency or circulation, foods like beets and cherries and dates and kale and leafy greens, those are the types of foods that are going to give your body not only the cooling factor, but the lubricating factor that you need in order to maintain and regulate your internal heat, whether it's too hot or too cold.
Okay. And what would those cooling foods be? Just because I might have a friend who might want to know about that.
You might have a friend. Apples, asparagus, avocados, what else? Eggs, actually. Nettle is great. I love nettle because it's a 1-2 punch. It has amazing blood tonic capabilities, which helps put nutrients into your blood, but it also will help with the cooling of the system as well. So it's a really, really great one. But pork, sweet potato, watermelon. A lot of times what I'll tell people is if you're starting to experience heat, think about some of the things that you'd eat on the hottest day in the summer. So like watermelon, leafy green salads, you know, those are the types of things that we gravitate towards because it's hot outside, and subconsciously we're looking to actually cool our bodies off. Again,
Okay.
why I really like Eastern medicine, because it makes it really easy to kind of conceptualize these ideas.
Right. It doesn't feel so complicated.
Yeah.
So what are some solutions to bringing more of this? You know, obviously we can look for these foods in the store and we can eat more of these foods.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other recommendations that you have?
Getting high concentration.
Well, Adrienne,
Because of,
can you
about that.
repeat that? We lost you for a second. You froze, but you're good now.
There we go. The challenges of working at home with children who now need to work electronically from home. They test my bandwidth in more ways than one. So, when we're looking at some of these core nutrients that are really, really important, during our menstruating years, blood deficiency is very common because blood is the flushing mechanism for us to do our womb cleanse every month. So even if you're not running anemic, you lose a lot of these types of nutrients once a month anyway. As we move into menopause and postmenopause, a lot of these same ingredients still end up being very foundational in terms of women's nutritional support, because they do other functions as our body starts to change. So like spinach and parsley and leafy greens and kale, for example, are incredibly important during our blood building years, because they're very core elements that help us have the efficiency for the blood to do the jobs that it needs to do. Then as we move into menopause and postmenopause, they actually help lubricate and keep the coolant in the car. So, so those types of foods, they actually have kind of two functions in the body. Blood deficiency foods, or foods that will help prevent being deficient in those areas, are things like azuki beans and apricots and beef and beets and cherries, dandelion. Dandelion and parsley, surprisingly enough, are two things that I use a lot with my steaming blends also, because they deliver some of these nutrients. Cherries and grapes are really important.
So this is great because, you know, many of us on the call have partnered with the Juice Plus company, and this provides food concentrates or plant powders that are pesticide free and vine ripened. And a lot of the foods that you're mentioning are in the Juice Plus blends. So for, you know, people that are really busy and don't have a lot of time to be preparing their own food all the time, all day long, or in the winter months, especially where many of us are up here in New Hampshire, we don't have access to a lot of fresh greens all of the time. Having these plant powders on hand is really important to help us supplement what we may not be getting, you know, just in the meals that we're preparing or maybe not preparing throughout the day. As well as, I think we want to talk a little bit about our tower garden as well, because of all the leafy greens we can grow there, as well as the herbs. But it's interesting to me that leafy greens are this sort of common thread through the whole lifespan, because they actually help with the heating as well as the cooling later on. But even things like you mentioned, cherries and dates and beets are in our fruit blend. Grapes are in our berry blend. So that's really exciting to know that we're getting those, you know, hopefully eating as many of those things as we can, but also getting them in our Juice Plus blends to supplement.
Well, and one of the reasons why I love the Juice Plus blends is, you know, for women who are nursing, you know, you're nutrient depleted because you've been growing a little person for 9 months, right? You know, no small task there. and then you're using your body to essentially feed them this whole time. So postnatal depletion is something that a lot of women really struggle with, especially in the early phases of postpartum. And I love this product because it's very simple. simple. So when you're nursing in one hand or you have baby on the arm, you literally can take it with one hand. And that becomes kind of a necessity when you have an infant, is whatever you can put in your mouth with one hand is really kind of all you can eat. So being able to, and that was why I originally started researching this product for my clients, because I was looking for a way to shorthand being able to get some of these foods into my clients. And I loved the fact, because I only operate on a whole food mentality because of my background. And I love the fact that you can get these fruits and veggies in a really concentrated form, because with farming practices and availability and things like that, the nutrient density in a lot of our foods is just not optimal. So unless you're going to a farmer's market locally, which again, like you said, is seasonal, especially up here, it's not optimal. So originally I was looking for a way to shorthand getting some of these nutrients into my mamas. But as I was looking at the ingredients that were in all of these things, there are so many core nutrients that are critical to women literally at every phase of their life, that it was a no-brainer for me. And also the Tower Garden, I actually grow almost half of the herbs that I use in my practice, I grow on my Tower Garden. And then in the rest of the ports, I have kale and I have, other leafy greens. And it's become very novel in my household. And my kids actually fight over who gets to go snip for, sandwiches and salads and things like that.
I love that. I don't have children myself, but all the stories I hear, I know it would be music to most parents' ears if they were hearing that about their own children. And from a practitioner standpoint, you have turned Tower Garden really into an inventory tool for yourself, where you are buying all of those herbs and spending lots of money on the herbs every month for your clients. Now you can grow most of them. So are you saving money by doing that?
Oh, big time. And I mean, not only am I saving money, but I know what where the source is.
Right.
So it's very cool to be able to say to my clients, like, hey, I know where all of this stuff came from. It came from my house, and and I can vouch for the fact that it's pesticide free, and all of these things, which is very cool. And a lot of my clients love the fact that because there's becoming more and more awareness of like knowing where the source of things come from, to know that what they're using is as clean as it possibly can be.
Right. And I think Eric was going to share the screen and just show us a few photos of our Tower Garden, just so people have a sense of what it is in case they don't know. Tower Garden is an aeroponic vertical garden. And so there's no soil required, and you can grow indoors and outdoors. You can grow year round. So again, for people like us who are up in here in New Hampshire during the winter, to be able to grow our own food year round is really incredible. Let's see if oh yeah, there we go. And I've got Santa up there to show that it was December when we were doing that. And, and so it's been an amazing gift for us as well, to be able to grow our own food, to be, more self-sufficient in our produce. And as you said, knowing how it's being sourced and where it's being sourced. The Juice Plus Company's mission of inspiring healthy living is all about whole food nutrition, but also clean, vine-ripened whole food nutrition, which are two really important factors. If it's not vine ripened, it just doesn't have the same amount of nutrition in it. And if it's not pesticide free, then we have those concerns to contend with. And then we're washing it and we're still not sure how clean it is, because we don't know how much of it we actually got off. And people think that just because it's organic means it's pesticide free, and that's actually not the case. 20 to 30% of pesticide residue is allowed on the produce, even as a USDA certified organic piece of produce. So I'm thrilled to hear that Tower Garden is helping you, Adrienne, with your practice, as well as Juice Plus and helping your clients. It's been a tremendous life changer for me and my health. And I have to say that although I am, experiencing what I would call perimenopausal symptoms and definitely feel more heat than I used to. I don't have the common complaints that a lot of women do at my age of, seriously intense hot flashes and, sort of the real ups and downs, of hormone levels and emotions and sort of all the other things that go with it. So I'd say I'm sort of, my temperature feels a little more elevated, more constantly. So I'm sure there's some work there to be done, but I don't have the intensity of symptoms. And I think Juice Plus has a lot to do with that. My whole health profile has changed quite a bit. And I'm somebody that always took really good care of myself. So it's amazing to me that even when you're doing a lot of the right things and taking care of yourself, there seems to be, always more to do and always room for improvement, especially in the world of nutrition because of our food supply issues in our world today.
Yeah, I really think that what you're seeing for symptoms or lack thereof has to do with how concentrated everything is.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you said, even with the most vigilant diet, getting in the sheer volume of the fruits and veggie servings that we really should be having is difficult, just because of the sheer volume.
That's right. The recommendation today is 7 to 13 servings, but if you have a chronic condition or if you exercise regularly, it's really double that. And that's just about impossible for everyone that I know. On my best days, I might get 9 servings in, but we tend to eat the same things over and over again because we get into a routine and we eat what we like to eat and what we like to prepare. So having the wide variety of 30 different fruits, vegetables, and berries is imperative. And then, of course, our vegan omega blend and our shakes provide these additional nutrients. The omega blend for me has been a game changer in terms of mental clarity and the ability to focus, memory, and all kinds of things along the area of my own brain health. And can you speak to the shakes as well? I know you had something about the shakes that you really liked.
Actually, I was going to kind of dovetail on what you're saying about the omegas. It has the EPA, the DHA, and ALA all in it. Unlike a lot of plant-based products that are very ALA heavy, ALA is actually the least out of the 3. So you have a lot of the fats that you need for mental clarity and brain health, as well as taking down inflammation in the entire system. But in terms of the shakes, I like the fact that they're very well-rounded in terms of their nutritional content. Sometimes when I have clients that are vegan and they are trying to stay away from certain items, it's harder for them to be able to get enough of certain nutrients, or people who have been on hormonal birth control and are nutrient deficient as a result of being on hormonal birth control for a prolonged period of time. It helps to backfill the hole. Excuse me. So it's very complete in its nutritional profile, that in addition to the berry and orchard and greens, you can pave over a pothole, but unless you backfill the pothole, you still have the hole. And this way, because everything is so concentrated, it helps to actually backfill that hole so you can pave over the top of it.
I love your analogies. Those are great. Adrienne, you're very, very illustrative. Is that the right word? Illustrative. Well, we are just about out of time. I don't want to keep everybody, but I just would, so appreciate you being on with us and sharing your expertise. And I love that you love Juice Plus, because I do, but it's always nice to hear an expert, in an area of healthy living and nutrition, validate that for me. So thank you all for being on. And if you would like more information about Juice Plus, please connect with the person who invited you to this call. We are so appreciative of you being on tonight and taking the time to hang out with us. This is our Healthy Hangout series. Typically, we do this live and in person and perhaps Zoom somebody in for an interview. But right now, we are virtual every week for a while. So thank you again for everybody for tuning in. Have a fabulous night. And thank you, Adrienne.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Take care.